Hi, my name's Dan, and this video is one in a series of videos that I'm doing about RPG mechanics, particularly how they apply to characters and character advancements in RPG video games. And in this one, I'm focusing in on skill trees, skills perks, things like that. Okay, so let's kick off. So the first thing is that this mechanic has many different names depending on the game that you're playing. I have come across it being named skills, perks, talents, traits, abilities, enhancements. There may be other names as well. So there is not one standard name. One of the most common, though, is skill. And this represents the idea that as your game progresses, the character learns new stuff, and it presents these in an atomic and discrete way, which means they're kind of separate from each other, and each one is a kind of package in its own right. So that they're like lumps. Suddenly, I've got a visual image of lumps of coal that you can pick up. Um, so yes, they're usually named to make them easier to refer to. And they can have tiers. So by this I mean that rather than just having separate ones, and each one is just a single thing on its own, you can have, for example, I've got Beast Mastery 1, Beast Mastery 2, Beast Mastery 3. I don't know how many you'd have. I kind of have a gut feeling that this might not go more than 5 or so. And how you present that depends on basically how you want to. So I've seen this represented as Beast Mastery 1 and Beast Mastery 2 are thought of as separate skills, and they are visually represented on your skill tree as separate entities. But I've also seen it as it's thought of as one skill, but then you can spend more skill points or whatever it is that you've got to improve these into the same skill to upgrade it from level 1 to level 2, etc. Okay, so they're usually in trees. This term skill tree has been floating around a lot. I'm going to try and explain what that means. I've got some visual examples here. So this is an example of a skill tree, and in this one, when you choose skills, you choose them from the top, and the lines that connect them show dependencies. So where you have a line of 4 under the prowler, and there's a bottom one which hasn't been unlocked. You have to unlock get the first 3 above it first before you can have that 4th one. So you have to follow along the lines. This one also is split into 4 different areas, and this is quite a common thing again in skill trees, is to group them together and to give them names so that you know what kind of area of the specialization is going to happen in. I've just got a few more pictures of more complex ones and even more complex ones, and this is reputed to be possibly the most complex skill tree in games. This is Path of Exile, and this is a very zoomed out view of it because there are hundreds of skills in this one. This looks quite overwhelming, to be honest. And as you've seen, the visual representation of these changes from game to game, and they're almost always represented in some kind of visual graphic way, because that helps people think about them and visualize them. Here's a particularly nicely presented one. So this is Fallout 4. This is a Vault-Tec perk tree. It's not really a tree so much in Fallout 4, but it's nice to do because it's got this. The Vault-Tec boy is demonstrating the use of the scale, so I'm just going to zoom in a little bit of that. And so you see these are they're done in levels, and the levels are going down, which is sometimes how it's presented. Sometimes it's presented kind of from top to bottom. Sometimes it's from bottom to top. Uh, this one makes sense to be top to bottom because it's using the metaphor of an underground vault bunker. Um, and so as you go deeper as you get further into it. But it's also across the top. You can see um, done according to the stats that they're particularly linked to. So strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, luck, and you've got perks for each of the different stat at different levels, and also all sorts of things going on there. Okay, so the mechanics of skill trees is that you usually gain skills or buy skills when leveling. So sometimes it's automatic, but more normally skills are part of player choice, the part of how the player's uh, going to give some customization to their character, and depending on their play style, they might choose particular skills, or it might go the other way around. They might choose skills, and that might inform their playing style. Sometimes you get this so that it's you get one per level. So when you level up, you get one, but it doesn't have to be that way. There are all sorts of different tactics that you can use here. So two obvious alternatives to this are um, systems where you don't get one per level, you maybe get one per 10 levels, but they're considerably more powerful. Or another way of doing this is quite often done that you are given what is called something like skill points to spend. And some of the skills are more expensive in terms of points than others. And you can save up your points between levels. So you may get 2 points per level, for example, but um, really easy or really unpowerful skills cost 1 or 2 points, and then some cost 5. And you're encouraged to think about whether you want to save up your points for a more expensive skill, which therefore should, of course, be a more powerful skill. Skills can be class specific, and you can have a system in your game uh, where all the skills are limited to one particular class, and so potentially with this you have separate skill trees per class. You can also mix it. You can have some class-based skills and some general skills that you can have. You could have them being bought with different skill currency and call them different things, or with the same. Um, all sorts of tactics, obviously, that you can do. Sometimes you can replace the concept of class by using skill trees. So uh, I, I'm about to say Fallout 4 does this and Skyrim does this. That's my memory of it. I haven't double checked that, but I believe I'm correct on this. So um, there's a tendency there to, instead of specifying classes, to just actually give you the skills and that you can choose, and you can choose to specialize or you can choose to generalize. So it can be a replacement for the class idea. Okay, so there are, broadly speaking, two types of skills, which are passive and active skills. And I'm going to give some examples of passive skills and show you an active skill in use. So passive skills are ones which basically work all the time. They're something that's a permanent change to some of the aspects of the game, or they're usually an aspect of the character. So one of the obvious things you can do is to enhance the stats. In previous video in this series, I've talked about the player stats. They can enhance basic stats or derived stats. It's more normal for it to be the derived stats, because basic stats, usually you're increasing those through a different mechanism that's, again, linked to leveling up. So it's usually not done using skills, but it could be. So an example of this might be, so +2 to dodge. And what that actually means depends on the level of numbers that you're going to be using for your dodge and what that dodge number is used to calculate, etc. There might be enhancements to various things in combat. There's all sorts of things that you can do here, of course. I'm going to give quick examples for weapons, armor, and spells. So plus 2 damage when you strike with a sword. So this is very specific. You've got to be using a sword for this uh, to be uh, to be useful. So this will be some kind of called something like sword mastery or something. This is quite a wide-ranging or quite a significant one. It allows you to wear plate armor. So in this imaginary game that I'm thinking of, um, you can't wear plate armor unless you gain the skill to wear plate armor. And then finally, I promise one for spells. +3 range to all fire spells. So instead of changing the damage, I've changed the distance that you can use these spells at. And this imaginary game that we'll be talking about will have different types of magic, and one of them will be fire magic. So this only applies to fire spells, this particular one. You can have enhancements to movement. So an example of that might be you can sprint for 10 seconds longer. You can enhancement to progress. So potentially something like +2% to all XP rewards. I will talk about this in a later video when I'm talking about balance. And then active skills, which are ones that kind of give you extra abilities, and they usually add to things that you can do in combat. They can be stuff that is general game, especially if it's to do with traveling or sprinting or something like that. But usually they're things that you can choose as extra tactics in combat. So I'm in World of Warcraft, and I'm going to show an active skill being used. In fact, World of Warcraft is a little bit confusing in terms of skills, talents, etc. We've got a specialization here. I'm a Tauran druid. We've got talents here which unlock every 10 levels, and you get to choose one. So I chose Predator there. But I've also got my spellbook open, which kind of puts all things that are available together and mixes them up. And I've got one here that I haven't yet put to use, which is Iron Fur. So I'm going to stick that, drag that down into my hotbar there. And I see now that I've got it that I need to have some rage before I can use it. So I'm going to have to go find somebody that I can attack. Bear with me. This is, of course, where I realise, because I don't know my way around here, there's something. Ooh, level 19, that might be a challenge. Let's see what happens. So these are other active abilities that I've got. So I'm just going to hit a couple of times with a couple of these to build up some rage. So rage is a bit like mana, but you need to fight to build it up, and then I can hit that ability, which is giving me armor increase. You can see the buffs of that as a result. Okay, so that's been a quick look at some stuff with skills. The one thing that I would encourage you to do if you're designing a set of skills is to try and use your imagination, because they're a very powerful mechanism. But they can be quite limited if your ideas are limited. And there's all sorts of things that you can do here. So this is similar in the way to if you're creating achievements, is that you need to kind of think through your game and think through what are the different aspects that that could be enhanced here. And again, like magic systems, there's all sorts of things that you could do. I've given some examples; they're quite straightforward examples, but you could go crazy. There's all sorts of you could do useful things, you can do funny things, you can do idiotic things. Yeah, you could have the ability to turn into a chicken for 10 seconds to see if you can make guards laugh and get past them that way. That would be a legitimate thing to do in some games. Anyway, that's been a run through skill trees, etc., and that's it from me for now.